Hello and welcome back to the Stories of Northern Life podcast, brought to you by the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I bring you the final episode here in our Dionne Quintuplets series. And so last time we discussed sort of the history about the quints, all of that, and today we are going to be interviewing one of the quints nephews, and he is also on the board of the Dionne Quintuplets Heritage Board, and so he's going to be talking a little bit more about some of the misconceptions about the quints and more of that family side of the quints that we often don't hear about. So let's get into the interview.
Okay, my name is Brian Callahan. That's BrianCallahan. I am the vice chair of the Dionne Quintuplets Heritage Museum Group, and I also happen to be a nephew of the Quints.
All right, and so you're their nephew, and so you're related on your mother's side, and now is she one of the older sisters?
Yes, my mother was one of the older siblings. They had 6 children before the Quints were born, then the Quints in 1934, and then after the Quints, they had 3 more children. My mom was 5 years old at the time of the Quints' birth, so she was one of the older siblings. Her name was Therese.
Right. And now, how did you feel sort of growing up with the Dionne name? Do you feel that people kind of recognized you? They knew of the quints and things like that?
They knew of the Quints. They didn't know how I was related because my surname obviously was not Dionne.
Okay.
But and that's basically the way it was. It wasn't talked about very much at the time when I was growing up. So you have to understand that the Quints themselves actually moved out of the province of Ontario and went to Quebec when they were 18 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, I did read that they moved to Montreal and things like that, and sort of had moved around. Again, hopefully we'll be working.
sounds good.
So, okay, good. Now, do you want to sort of go through and introduce yourself again?
Okay, my name is Brian Callahan. That's BrianCallahan. I am the vice chair of the Dionne Quintuplets Heritage Museum Group, and I also happen to be a nephew of the Quints.
All right, and so you're their nephew, and so you're related on your mother's side, and now is she one of the older sisters?
Yes, my mother was one of the older siblings. They had 6 children before the Quints were born, then the Quints in 1934, and then after the Quints, they had 3 more children. My mom was 5 years old at the time of the Quints' birth, so she was one of the older siblings. Her name was Therese.
Right. And now, how did you feel sort of growing up with the Dionne name? Do you feel that people kind of recognized you? They knew of the quints and things like that?
They knew of the Quints. They didn't know how I was related because my surname obviously was not Dionne.
Okay.
Um, but and that's basically the way it was. It wasn't talked about very much at the time when I was growing up. So you have to understand that the Quints themselves actually moved out of the province of Ontario and went to Quebec when they were 18 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, I did read that they moved to Montreal, and things like that, and sort of had moved around. When we were emailing back and forth before, you were telling me sort of how there are misconceptions of sort of the history or myth surrounding the quints. And now, would you like to go through sort of some of those?
well, I certainly can. First off, there were two midwives present for the delivery of the Quints, one being my grandmother's aunt, Madame Legros, and the other midwife actually was Madame Labelle, who had 18 children of her own.
Mm.
And as a midwife, she's on record for delivering over 300 babies.
Wow.
So they were, at the time, they were in the process of delivering the third quintuplet, that would be Cecile, when the doctor, Dr. Alan Roy Defoe, came on the scene. The doctor then stood by and watched as the midwives delivered the last two babies. He then looked at the babies, made a statement to the midwives, they're not going to be alive come daylight. I'm going home. He actually walked out the door of the house, got in his car, and drove back to his office in Callender. Now, the big conception there is everybody says that the doctor delivered them,
Mm-hmm.
and in reality, he took credit for it because when he returned come daylight and saw that they were alive, obviously the light bulb went on. Look what I did.
Yes.
Now, another conception was the Ontario government portrayed this family, the Dionne family, as being poor. They weren't poor. My grandfather actually had a working 300-acre farm at the time. He was one of three people in the area that owned a motor vehicle. The doctor had a vehicle, the parish priest had a vehicle, my grandfather had a vehicle. They were not poor. However, the government put it out there to portray them as being poor, to basically tell the public that they were doing the right thing, taking the five children away from the family.
Mm-hmm.
Another misconception.
Yes.
They also told the public that they were afraid the family was going to exploit them. My question in return is, who indeed did exploit them? The Ontario government, the doctor, the Roman Catholic Church, major companies who were allowed to put their names on products to make themselves money. And it's estimated at the time that over $500 million was made off the name Dionne. You convert that into today's currency, it's approximately $10.8 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody that could jumped on the gravy train. North Bay, indeed, was approximately at the time 2 weeks away from having to declare bankruptcy.
Okay.
And the birth happened in Corbeil, which is only about 15 minutes southeast of North Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Callender profited from it. The hotel in Callender, which was the Callender Hotel at the time, now lose. The top floor was actually in addition put on to house the tourists.
Mm-hmm.
Highway 11 coming into North Bay from the south was actually paved for the tourist trade. So, like I said, everybody and anybody profited off of
Yes.
it.
And the other sort of thing that we always heard with the exploitation was that once the girls were able to sort of go back with the family, like your grandparents had regained the custody from the Ontario government. They were saying that once again, your family was exploiting them, and um, I just wanted to hear sort of your side of that.
Well, you have to understand that for the first 9 years of the Quints' lives, they were taken away from the family and placed in a specially built nursery across the road from where the house was situated. For those 9 years, my grandparents, the parents of the Quints, were only allowed to see their babies in the nursery if everybody was healthy for 20 minutes a day.
Mm.
Now, if I'm losing my train of thought here. Um, and when I say see their children, they stood behind a plate glass window and looked at them. They weren't allowed to have any contact at all with the babies. That was due to the control of the doctor. Uh, my mom and her siblings, they weren't given that opportunity at all. For 9 years, they were separated, not knowing who they were. Of course, they could see them when they're across the road. Um, at 9 years of age, when they return to the family, they don't know each other. You have the five princesses. That's what they were. They were raised by the nursing staff. Everything was done for them. They had no concept how to dress themselves, let alone do farm work. Meanwhile, the rest of the family, they were working in the fields. So when they returned to the family, there was, for the next 9 years until they decided to move, there was no bonding because they didn't know each other. And during the 9 years, the quints were actually put on display in a specially built Quintland display area twice a day for 30 minutes each time, that the public can look at them and watch them playing. So they were in essence a circus or a zoo act.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my grandfather actually had a souvenir shop. He opened up a souvenir shop to keep him going.
Yeah.
Uh, Believe it or not, there was a basket out in front of one of the display areas containing rocks, and they called them fertility rocks. And young ladies wishing to become pregnant would pick up a rock and take it with them. Uh, my grandfather, it's rumored that he would go for walks down the road across from the Quintland, and if the public, somebody in the line of the public, and there were lineups waiting to get in, approximately 3,000 people a day would go in to see them playing. My grandfather would go for walks, and if a woman recognized him and was in the process of wanting to become pregnant, would actually go over and touch him, hoping
Mm.
that his virility would wear off on them. I'm sorry, you don't get pregnant that way.
No.
And the funny thing is, I do a lot of the tours at the museum in the
Mm-hmm.
summertime, and I have to throw in humor because if I didn't, this story in essence is a tragedy. It's not a miracle; it's a miracle they survived. It's a
Mm-hmm.
tragedy that this family was destroyed by all that went on, and you can't fault any of those members of that family, Quints or the siblings or the parents. It's not their fault. They were thrust into it and taken advantage of.
Yeah. And then there would have also been the sort of big language barrier as well.
Well, everybody was French.
Well, I was just thinking of more of like with the Ontario government trying to
Oh,
fight the government because they would have been a little bit more anglophone in that sense.
oh, definitely.
Yeah.
At the time, it's well known that French Canadians and Italians or anything else, they weren't first class citizens. It was, like you said, the white Anglo society.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but you gotta laugh from time to time thinking about what went on and how this family was treated and taken advantage of.
And now, sort of, were all those were those all the misconceptions that you wanted to go over?
Uh, yeah, that's well, there. Yeah, that's about all I can think of right now.
Okay. So I did also want to ask, more so on the side of, um, like, like your mom and like the rest of the Dionne family. Um, what was it sort of like, um, for them, during that time of, fame? How, like, did your mom talk about, um, how it was sort of strange to have know that you had siblings that you, never really, met, and then, and sort of growing up knowing that they were super famous and you were there, how did she sort of talk about, growing up like that?
Well, you have to understand that to this family, in essence, to the other siblings, it turned out that the number five was like a number, became like a number 13 to most families, considered unlucky. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm sorry to say, but my mother carried it to the extreme. She had four boys. I'm the oldest. The one just below me, Barry, actually played major junior A hockey in the Ontario Hockey League in
Mm-hmm.
Southern Ontario for 2 years. The year before he went down there to play, he actually played 1 year here for the North Bay Junior Trappers. His name wasn't Dionne, so
Mm-hmm.
nobody knew the relationship. What number do you think they gave him to wear?
Oh, number 5.
The number five. My mother refused to go and see him play hockey because he was wearing the number five.
Mm.
Extreme, certainly, but you have to understand what this family went through and
Yeah.
how they felt.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one of the the quirks in this, and it was sad growing up. The rest of the siblings basically remained in this area. One of the older girls moved away to St. Catharines, Niagara Falls area,
Mm-hmm.
and the ones that did have families, we got together quite often, and you know, I me being a history buff, kept my eyes and ears open and paid attention and
Mm-hmm.
listened to my aunts and uncles and my grandparents talking about what went on because this story wasn't shared by the family with outsiders. It was kept in house. And I realize if a psychiatrist would be listening to this, they'd say, well, that's the wrong thing to do. You should air everything out. Well, I agree wholeheartedly, but in
Yeah.
this case, it was kept in house, and uh, my mother was basically the unofficial spokesperson for the rest of the family,
Mm-hmm.
and she's since passed. She passed in 2021, uh, to the point where at that time I had been involved with this museum since 2018. She suffered from dementia for years before her passing, to the point where she didn't know who I was. And it's not a bad thing because if she knew that I was involved with the museum, she'd disown me. That's how bad she felt about the whole situation. And
Mm-hmm.
if you wanted to get her all upset, all you had to do was mention the number five or what went on back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
The only word I can use for any member of the family feeling is animosity. And I, time and time again, during tours, apologize to the people because I carry the animosity on my shoulder for what this family went through. I
Mm-hmm.
feel their pain. But
Yeah. Well, well,
it's a
that's
story that has to be told.
yes, and that's also why when I reached out to the board and then you replied back and also said that you were a member of the family, I wanted to get more of your side of the history because we hear so much about the girls, we kind of forget the rest of the family and like your grandparents and all of them are sort of forgotten and pushed to the background. And I sort of wanted to learn more about sort of their side of this history.
I understand, and it's funny that you would use that term "forgotten" because I refer to them as the forgotten ones,
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the siblings and the parents, basically.
Yep. Because when I was sort of growing up and sort of had heard the story of the quints and everything like this, I never heard any mention that your grandparents had any other children. And that I find is also very sad. Not that you would want those other children exploited, but just that the fact that we hear so much about the Quins. They were so popular that it's very sad that the other siblings were left behind because you see that with any family dynamic, if favor is put to one child, and the others are forgotten. It's very very hard, and so your your family was just that put to the absolute extreme, kind of basically.
Yes, no, you're right. I agree 100% on you.
Mm.
It's when you think of it, it's sad what this family went through, and you remember the amounts that I gave you that were made off the family, and then there was a payout made to the family in 1998 by the Mike Harris government of just shy of $4 million. The big discrepancy between what was made at the time and what they got off of this, and
Yes.
it's just terrible. And people come in there. My hardest tours are people that come in there with family backgrounds involving residential indigenous schools, and concept is basically the same:
Yep.
going into a place and children away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, those are the ones where I can barely make it home after those ones. I'm burnt right out.
Yes. Yeah. Um, and now, um, so with you sort of joining the board, um, I know that before it was just the Dionne Quintuplets Museum, and now I see that it has changed to the Dionne Quintuplets Heritage Board. Um, how, from like when you sort of joined that, you were saying in 2018, have you tried to um, make changes to sort of um, bring to light more of like these misconceptions as you were saying, but also sort of trying to bring more of um, less of the sort of tourism aspect that was originally put on them. Have you, or do you find that when you joined, they were still fairly respectful?
Well, most things are respectful. We I try to change up our displays quite often just to get new things in. We have so many artifacts and souvenirs in storage that if we brought everything into the house at one time,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to come in through the door. Um, Besides that, we tell my story. We, the only volunteers we have are the people that sit on the board.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. You can well imagine being in your business how hard it is to get volunteers.
Yes.
uh, so we only open 2 days a week,
Mhm.
Fridays and Saturdays, and we don't charge admission. The reason for that is my belief is that enough money was made off the Dionnes, and we do not want to continue down that road. Now, the house itself and most of the artifacts in the museum are owned by the city.
Okay.
However, uh, I suspect somewhere in the future, the city's probably going to come to us and say, "No, you've got to start charging admission." And
Hmm.
just between you and I, when that time, if that time ever comes, I'll walk out the door and I won't come back.
Yeah.
That's that's just belief, and I think that most of the directors, if not, kind of believe that as well. So
Hmm. How do you feel that sort of North Bay and like Calendar have sort of changed? Like, do you find that people still like? Do you think those names are still sort of popular because of that history, or what do you think?
well, the story is still out there. People do have interest. We opened on Canada Day last year, and which wasn't on our regular opening days, and we actually had over 500 people come through
Wow. Hmm.
in a 6 hour period. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Calendar. Well, Calendar was where the doctor lived.
Okay.
Corbeil was whence we're born. I realize there are souvenirs out there that say Calendar. No, you have to understand that the Quints themselves were born in Corbeil.
Hmm.
Calendar was where another misconception.
Okay. Because it wasn't exact. Because they said that they had built sort of the little hospital for the girls, but they were very vague on where it was built. And then when you see sort of the little postcards that said like Quintland, it was saying Calendar. So I was
Yeah,
like they kind of had were trying to give the impression that um, yes, the Quints were born in Quebec, but they were sort of later on more so in Calendar.
not no, they were basically
Okay.
kept in Corbeil.
Okay.
They'd go out and about. They did go on tours once in a while. They went to the Toronto to see the King and Queen when they visited, and every time they went out during the first 9, they were actually escorted by Ontario provincial police officers. Quintland itself was basically a compound fenced in with barbed wire, monitored by a guardhouse manned by Ontario provincial police officers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, in essence, it was a compound. My grandparents had to wait outside the guardhouse until the doctor decides everybody's healthy. You can come in and see your kids. Well,
Mm.
I'm sorry. They actually had a display area with one-way screen on the inside with a playground in the center of the structure. And that's where the quints were put on display. Now, the idea of the screen was that they didn't want the quints to know that they were being watched. Well, there was a
Mm.
problem with that because it wasn't soundproof.
Oh.
Well, you know how people get all excited and they start spun off, and oh, look at the pretty girls, look at that, isn't she cute? Well, they could hear that. They been watched.
And so that is all that we have for you. Unfortunately, the call did end up dropping, so it did cut out sort of abruptly. But I did want to thank once again Brian Callahan for coming on and doing this interview with us. You can check out more about him and the Dionne Quintuplets at the Dionne Quintuplets Heritage Board site. And as always, thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might like our blog too. Head over to our website, Sault Museum, that's SAULT museum.ca, and look under Discover. You will find our blog, Museum Musings. We share short synopsis of influential people, historic places, and impactful events in our history. Pictures are always included, and you will be sure to learn a little something new with each post.